Okay, welcome to Friday's Hangout. We're privileged enough to be joined with Wade Pierce of Whole Mind Golf. Um, Welcome, Wade.
Hello, Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year. I hope the holidays went well for you.
Awesome, awesome. I'm one of those guys who the holidays never really long enough. It's just, it was fun. But anyways, it's all good.
Yes. Now, kind of speaking of the holidays, obviously one of the traditions with New Year's is setting goals or resolutions, as we call them.
Yeah.
And now we're on January 11th now, and I think some of that momentum, you might drive by a gym and still see it full. But as we get further into this month and then closer into February, some of that momentum from the new year really starts to fade away. So what are some suggestions that you have, and let's try and keep this golf specific, with improving your golf game, playing better. What are some suggestions that you have from a mentality standpoint to really stay focused and driven on achieving those goals and resolutions?
This is it's funny how we always tend to do this in New Year's. I don't know where it came from, but the New Year's resolution was born, and it became this brand, and everyone's going to, all of a sudden, crank it up. And I think that's one of the myths, that there's a specific time of the year that everyone collectively decides for some bizarre reason that this is the time we're going to all get focused. It's a brand new year. So there's this collective buzz that gives some people a false juice, I would put it. They're using it as a bit of leverage because the topic's trendy. And then when the topic's off and their attention moves to other things, they drop it, just like anything else that just had a short-term buzz. It's like eating sugar versus really good quality, slow-release foods. It gives you a spike, and then it's over, right? The challenge is people will use, they don't understand how to fuel their own nervous system in terms of connecting their dream with the actual practicality of making it real. So I would have some very clear distinctions around that. I have a process I call the Powerhouse goal setting process, and you can apply this to any goal setting system you choose to use, of which Jay will share one with you at the end of this call that's excellent. Now, you can use this within that, and it is, number one, the most important thing for goals is you have to have it sensory rich. Most people create goals that are abstract. They have an idea. I want to shoot this score, and I'm going to practice this much. I'll hit this many balls, if it's even that specific. And they've chunked it down to things they're going to do to hit goals. The problem is those are abstractions. Those are ideas. Ideas don't really tend to move the body, if you've noticed. We all have a lot of ideas that don't go anywhere. So you need to see, hear, and feel it. So take this to heart. See your goal as clear and as vivid as possible. Hear yourself talk about the goal in your own head of it being fulfilled. This is the critical distinction. Most people see it in the future, so they're forever disconnected from their goal. And they think, well, that's what I want. It's out there. You have to make it in here. You have to bring the goal and make it first person, like it's happening right now. I'm already shooting those scores. If I was already shooting those scores, how would I practice? How would a guy practice if he was already that good? Do you follow? See how that's different? How would a guy go about playing a round of golf if he knew he was already good? He wouldn't play. You follow me? It's a very different place. So I'll stop there if you have another comment.
Well, kind of continuing on that path, I think what happens with a lot of people is they have this big, audacious goal that they set. Yeah. Let's just say play scratch golf, okay? They want to play scratch golf, and in their minds they may already be scratch golfers, but they don't necessarily know the process of becoming a scratch golfer. Okay, that requires a gym commitment. That requires playing rounds on courses and becoming comfortable with the distances for each club and the elements and going to the range and all these commitments. The process of really becoming a scratch golfer or shooting a certain score. What what can they do so that they don't get discouraged during the process? Because you can't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a scratch golfer. Yeah. There is a process, and there's going to be some positive things and some negative things on this process. So what can they do to be persistent in this process even when things don't go according to their plan?
Now, what you said is very accurate. You know, there's a classic saying everyone's heard probably 1,000 times: "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." Because it's such a big thing that if it's not chunked down, it will forever be indigestible. It's a lot like our big dream goals, right?
Yeah.
So we want to chunk them down. For example, I'm going to the range and I'm going to hit, I'll say it's 100 balls. I'm going to have a strategy. I'm going to break that down into little pockets, and I'm going to have successes. So here's the key to directly to your question. If we don't have many successes along the way, I mean hundreds of mini successes, and we only have one big goal, and we only feel a success once the goal is achieved, we never have any positive momentum to connect right now to the big goal. So it'll shut down. Bottom line is you're going to get discouraged and quit, or some of you who are disciplined enough will just plow right through that dissatisfaction and create it. But generally speaking, most people are going to stop because they lost the momentum. So you want to break down things into small pieces. For example, at the range, you say, if I can hit 5 draws today, and usually I only hit 2, well, that's great. That's a good win toward your goal, towards maybe a shot shape. Now, maybe it's not a shot shape. Maybe it's a distance. Maybe it's a trajectory, because all those things lead to experiences on the golf course. So they're tiny, doable, measurable, but most importantly is you get an emotional win constantly. And of course, this is a very short-term chat to cover such a big topic, but yeah, you could take that process and apply it to every aspect of your goals, whether it's how many times you're going to practice, how much time chipping. Break it down into an emotional win by doing maybe a little bit more than you did last time. If it's 3 good chips, next time it's 4. And you have to feel that as a success, not just, I'm a 16 handicap and I want to be an 8 and I'm not going to be happy until then, which is how most people play golf, by the way. They're never happy because they don't have a small series of wins along the way to connect to the long-term goal.
And the nice part about having, the nice part about having this process or this system is that once you have established it in your golf game or whatever, you can apply it to other things, such as fitness and going to the gym. I want to go from 200 pounds and 20% body fat, or whatever the numbers are, to 180 pounds and 15%, to 170 pounds and 10%, and so on and so forth, or whatever the numbers are. And you can use it for whatever big audacious goals that you have in place.
This is to support that point. The big audacious goal, that's a nice term because it's kind of fun sounding, right? But you actually do have to have a big audacious goal. Excuse me. If you can't get inspired by it, think about this. People set goals that are abstract. They're numbers. Like, I want to be rich, or I want to be a better golfer. Those are useless. You might as well not even say it because they're pointless. They have no power because they're unreal. Then they're not even specific. So number one, if I was to summarize the things I've said so far, is to be sensory specific. That means, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Not just what is it called? What is the label of your goal? You have to see, hear, and feel it like you already experience it, not some distant wish, and then act as if you are that type of player as you practice and everything you do. That is the fastest way to create what you want, because your nervous system and your unconscious, by the way, doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined event. So when you continually imagine something with sensory-rich vividness, your unconscious assumes it's real and starts producing physiological responses for you to experience that in the physical world through your goal setting. So,
and let's get to the fun part of this conversation, and that is, and we've talked about it briefly. By setting mini goals, you get mini rewards. Yep. Now let's talk on the bigger scale. You're quote unquote at the end of the road. You're a scratch golfer. You're winning all these tournaments. You're playing the best courses in the world. What is the difference between having worked to achieve it and really earned it? What does that reward feel like?
I think that's a fascinating thing, because that's just a huge conversation. Obviously, when we really earn something, we feel we strived for effort to actually create an outcome. It's a sense of fulfillment beyond most things, because you exerted, you had to discipline, you had to sacrifice some other things. If you're going to achieve like massive goals in golf, you know how challenging it is. You don't just say, I'm a 16 handicap, I want to be an 8, and it magically appears. You're going to be doing a lot of practicing. And even more from a 4 to a scratch. You think it's work to get from 16 to 8, try taking those last few strokes off, because at that point it feels like you're towing a train. You know, it's challenging. So yeah, you just want to feel that sense of reward through consistently approaching your goal in small chunks. Here's the summary: if you constantly have a big chunk goal and you never break it down, you won't create the small wins that give you the reward along the way. So you will find ways to quit. You'll say, well, that movie's on, I can practice tomorrow. That's what we do. We start making rationalizations for not doing our goal because it's easier, or put it this way, it's more emotionally connecting to do the thing that's fun in the moment. We're less emotionally connected to our goal. That's why people don't achieve what they set out. They haven't broken it down, they don't have small wins, and they don't know what it's going to feel like at the end. If you can imagine what it'll feel like, that's the juice to keep you going. If you can't get that feeling, you need to work on that and spend some time right there before you start.
I remember so many years back when there was a big monkey on Phil Mickelson's back for not winning a major. Yeah. And this can go with any player not winning a major. Yeah. It can go with, you know, the coach that is so close to winning the championship game or tournament or whatever, and you can just see that gratification, maybe even a little relief, because it's like the first one's off, the pressure's kind of off type of deal. But right when they make that final putt on the final round at on the 18th hole, you can just see them just bursting out with joy. Yeah. It's really quite a thing, because you can almost, as a spectator, you can almost empathize with them, knowing that any goals that you've achieved and worked your butt off to achieve, and you know, for them it's winning the Masters, the Open, and so on. For you guys, it could be whatever else it may be.
I mean, that's a perfect point. What it also does when you do achieve something that it was long sought after and you had to toil to get it, is when you do achieve something like that, is not only the fulfillment that you get, the sense of fulfillment, but what that does to your psyche for years, because you did something that most people don't do. And that gives you a self-image boost that you can't get until you do it. So quitting on your goals is devastating. So you're better off setting smaller ones that you know you'll do, because the challenge most people have in goals is they set a goal and they've done it, New Year's resolution, for some reason give up, don't do it. Well, the next year they try. That pattern's already in play in the unconscious, that I'm going to set a goal and quit anyways. So this is really important. This is this is the tough love part of the conversation. You have to face it. Don't set a goal unless you're going to commit to it. Then when you do and you achieve it, it's invigorating beyond belief, because you know you challenged yourself and you did it and you experienced that joy, like Phil draining that putt on 18, or everyone who's strived to get on tour and got their tour card. Can you imagine? I'd probably cry, for crying out loud. It's years of work, right? And you finally get it. And then your belief level goes through the roof because you did something most people will quit on. And that is, there's no price tag for that, because that'll change your life. That'll give you momentum that you won't have to look for anymore. You'll know, I did it. That's a powerful, rewarding place to get to.
Now, speaking of this commitment, there's a program, and this is real quick, and then we'll get back to what we've been talking about. There's a program that my dad and I have done. It's the Goals Guy. It's a 100-day commitment, and what it is you have a contract, but you sign it yourself. And if you think about that, what it does from a mentality standpoint, you are making a contract with yourself. This is a binding contract, right? Nice. So it's something that each day, and you post it up on wherever you see it on a day. It could be in your office, your bedroom, wherever. And each day, and it's pretty much, what are the 10 things that you want to accomplish? It can be relationship, personal, professional, whatever. Anyway, I just thought that was a really cool program. It's worked wonders for my dad and myself, both on a professional and a personal level. But anyway, if anyone,
excellent.
Well, I can certainly pass on that. I can pass on the details to you and whoever else wants it. I'm sure you probably have a program that also works to achieve goals.
Absolutely, yeah. It's within my Whole Mind Golf mental game training course. The section is called Powerhouse Goal Setting, and I go into detail of some of the things I've spoke with on today to teach you how to set smaller goals, which, in keeping with that, what I found one of the best goals in terms of handicap stuff and better performance from the course was, and most people are aware of this, but they really maybe haven't looked at it enough, excuse me, is fairways, greens, sand saves, up and downs. I don't care if you're 20 handicap. You should keep track of that. You will progress so fast when you do that. As soon as I started doing it, I think I was a 26 handicap. I basically, the ball was barely getting airborne. It was airborne, but wasn't very high. And I said, who cares? How many fairways did I hit? I thought, well, that's what pros do. Well, I want to model them. I'm not going to do what someone a 26 handicapper is going to do. I want to do what a pro is going to do. Yeah. So I used that, and then fairways, greens, sand saves, up and downs, putts per round, total putts per round, and then I got more detailed, and I go, wow, if I could just knock 2 putts off a round, I'd be like a 6. And that's all I focused on. I became a better putter, and it worked.
And that's almost more valuable. So, you start your round on your scorecard. Instead of writing, I got a 4 or 5 or 6 on the first hole, second hole, it's almost more valuable. Put GIR, putts.
Absolutely.
And that way it's like, well, you can add up your score based on that at the very bottom if you really want to. But it's like, okay, if you have 3 putts on a green, let's find a way. There's no way you're getting a par.
And that's exactly right. But the beauty is this is so accurate. Like, it's not fantasy land. So I was really good at up and downs of the sand, say 2 years ago. I changed wedges, and now I looked at my stats, and they got worse. I look back, and I go, my bunker play suffered. I wasn't as close to the hole. I wasn't getting up and down. That's a stroke around, let's say. Well, that's a stroke. Now, in the up and down of wedge shots, it had too much bounce. It was too heavy for me, but I wasted a season with it, and I couldn't chip as close to the hole. So I was not, those putts were longer. So now we're talking 2-3 strokes around. I'm not a worse player. The technique felt good, but the tool was wrong. And it's not saying I blame it on the tool. I'll take some responsibility. But sometimes the club is just wrong. I mean, the weighting is wrong. The bounce is wrong for your environment. So it's useful to know if you're a better player to pay attention to your tools, because if they're off, they're off. The lies, even simple things like that. But fairways, greens, sand saves, up and downs, putts per round, total putts per round, you get a night and day look at your performance, and you can look at the one area and go, right there, I got worse in those 2 areas, and my handicap went up. Simple. Then you know what to focus on, right?
Speaking of goals, I made a little pitch for people to, tune into us live today from our Google Plus golf community, and I asked if they had any questions. And I sent you this earlier this week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. I sent you in an email form this gentleman's question. And this kind of goes along with being a high handicapper, getting down to a low handicap status, and the goal. Now, this particular question was, he can start out playing like a 2 and handicap, and then by hole 3 he's a 20, and then he's pretty inconsistent throughout the round. Some holes he's phenomenal, other holes he's not so good, and then he's back to good, and so on. And so he's looking for a process, keeping on this theme of process and goal setting. He's looking for a process to maintain a consistent level. Let's just keep it at the 2 handicap level, because that's what he mentioned. What are some tips that you can help him, or you can provide him, for achieving that consistent golf?
Well, that's a huge conversation. I do private coaching, and this would literally be a private session. This is full on, because I know that I'm hearing several things going on. Usually, more often than not, it's a focus issue at that level. Your focus is just not where it needs to be, and when it moves off of where you're a good player, you're losing some connection to your skills, and then you're making bad decisions, and it starts snowballing the wrong direction. So you could literally go from guys shoot 74 to 84 in the same round and wonder who's swinging the club, and it's small. At your level, whoever this question is directed to, anyone at that level, it's usually so small, it's scary, the shift. So it's a focus issue. If I was trying to find something now that give you quick, it would be, you're going to pay attention to when you are playing well. I'm a huge believer in modeling excellence. I don't believe in staring at problems and trying to analyze them. I like looking at successes. So you are a good player, clearly. It's a 2. I mean, less than 1% of the planet ever get there. So you're in a small community. So I would look at what I'm doing well when I'm doing it. Because right now this is an issue for you, so you need to go for a couple rounds and focus. When you're playing well, just notice that feeling, the feeling in your body, and then notice the feeling when you're not playing well, and get a very good distinction between the two. I know you know it, so if you're watching this, I know you're going to know that feeling difference. Then I'm going to ask you to, next time you play, is pay attention to that feeling when you go into your pre-shot routine. Do not make a swing until you're able to get into that feeling. If you can't find that feeling, don't swing. Back off, take a look at the shot. This is the shot I want to hit, and 100% commitment to that club selection. So those are the two things. Find the feeling, only address the ball when you've got that feeling, and then when you pick a club, whatever your decision on that shot is, it's 100% commitment. I don't care if you shank it after that. I really don't. It doesn't matter. You need to be sold that if it's a 7-iron, it's a 7-iron, and melt it. You know, hit it like it is the 7-iron. Just do those two things. I mean, again, I'm summarizing a big conversation for the point of this, but if I was working with you more directly, I'd do much more than this, but try that. I think you'll have some success.
Okay, well, we'll share this with the golf community, and I'll be sure to mention him to see if he has any further questions. But you know, as with anything, it's a process. And if he's in a 2 handicap, he's done a lot of work, but he's probably just that 1 or 2 things short of being, you know, a truly consistent 2 handicapper.
Yeah, it's all about refinement. There is no one. I was having a conversation a couple of days ago with a world champion racquetball player lady, and she's amazing. But it's refinement. She still wants to excel. She still wants to get better. So you never get complacent. You get just because you're a 2 doesn't mean you're always going to play to a 2 handicap level, right? It's we're not robots. So there's constant refinement. We're always updating and refining our skills and paying attention to what we're doing. We're not just, well, I'm a 2 and I'm a 2 forever. Right? If, in matter of fact, if you have goals like that and you reach a plateau, you will go backwards. That's what happens. You're either growing or you're dying. So you make a decision, say, I'm here. My desire is to set smaller goals to move toward a 1 or a scratch handicap, just so that pulls out of you a desire to perform at a higher level that's consistent with the 2. If you don't do that, you start focusing on the problems and the things that are taking you away from being a 2, and that actually, your focus shifts to problems and it drags you downward and your handicap starts getting worse. So take that to heart. I assure you, that is a big distinction. If you can take that in, that will shift how you process, practice, and everything.
Well, you know that if pros like Rory and Phil and Tiger are always striving to be better, and they're at their level, then us regular everyday golfers can always get better as well.
Totally, absolutely. Would you mind if I showed one thing just before I
go for it, please?
All right. This is for anyone watching this. They can, if they're curious about the whole mind golf. I'll see if I can pull this off this screen share. This is my test, but I think I can. Here we go, and I'm just going to show it to you, and I'll be back in a second. So any of you can take a peek at this. It's whole mind. You can tell me, Jay, if you see this.
I see this. Yep.
Okay, so others can see this. This is the website. It's wholemindgolf.com. Very easy, and it talks about my training, mental game coaching product. And inside that, there's information on how to set goals, sensory specific. So I don't care what goal setting system you use, of which the one Jay's talking about is excellent. You could apply some of these essences inside it to make sure you get emotionally connected to your outcome. So thank you. I just stopped the screen share now.
Yeah, no worries. One last thing about goals and mini rewards in this whole conversation, and that is accountability. So many people say, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go to the range, I'm going to do this, and they don't hold themselves accountable. And, you know, life happens, meetings happen, work happens, emails, whatever. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. It's just how you use it. So the issue is, how can one really hold himself or herself accountable, especially if they haven't necessarily completely internalized their goal, but they're making progress, or they have at least an outline for getting there?
I'm going to say something here. That's a profound question around motivation, because people will start and stop stuff based on two elements of being human. We do everything in our lives to gain pleasure or avoid pain. I don't care what it is. It comes down to those two elements of being alive. So if you experience pain around your goal at any level, you're not going to do it, generally speaking, unless you have that commitment and accountability. Now, people go, well, oh yeah, how am I going to stay committed? I don't feel like going. And then they say you don't go. Well, now you've chipped away at your accountability, where others aren't going to believe you for sure, because you can't believe you because you didn't do it. So you get into a negative spiral, which is not useful at all. So I'm going to recommend a couple things to consider when you're testing yourself, or you're caught in this area where, I don't feel like going, or whatever, you're not accountable, as Jay says. You need to have positive sensations around why to do your goal that are more intense than the reasons not to. That's the only reason you don't take action. If you're emotionally connected to something, you just do it. Like if I'm hungry, I want a coffee, I don't have a conversation with 20 people. I just go get it. There's no disconnect. Whereas my goal, my dream, well, we get inside, we have self-talk, and we talk ourselves out of it. I'm going to tell you the only reason you talk yourself out of it is because that either you don't believe it, or your emotional relationship to the goal is too weak. It's not potent enough. And it's like Tony used to say, Tony Robbins would say, people aren't, they don't procrastinate, they just have impotent goals. And that's true. There's not a sense of a connection to it where you just cannot not have it. It has to get like that. Those people are unstoppable. There's no way they're not going to do it. They're committed and accountable. Now, you need a lot of guidance if you feel you're going to slide off. The goals guide and the goal setting thing is brilliant because you have support, the community, you get online, you're accountable, and you know you're accountable. So it gives you some pain, something to move away from, which is not being accountable, but also the pleasure of, hey, I was accountable. And that's a pleasant feeling. That's toward the fulfillment of your goal. So I just don't want to throw that out there.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Wade, for everything. Any closing thoughts that you had to share?
I would just summarize it that your goals must be emotional. If I was to say anything, if they're not emotionally stimulating, you will not take action to fulfill them. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to doing more with more of these hangouts with you over the course of the year. I'm sure there's plenty of discussions that can be had over the mental game in golf.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see where one discussion starts, it could branch out into four. It's just the nature of golf and life, and it's inspiring. I enjoy it, so thanks for your time, and hope everyone else enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, Wade.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right.